In our previous video, we created a header template. However, we didn't actually flesh it out with any content, and we're going to do that right now. Yesterday's video was about the global settings. Please go and watch that before you build anything. Why do we need to have templates? If you're going to have like a 100-page website, hopefully not, but if you're going to have 100 pages, and you got a header at the top with your logo and navigation menu, maybe social sharing icons or anything else like that, you don't want to be building it page after page after page, because that's a hell of a lot of work. Same with the footer. If it's a standard footer, you want it to repeat. The templates allow you to create it once, but you can allow it to be displayed on certain pages. You could have a completely different header for the about page or your shop page or anything like that. So we went and created a header. Now what I am going to do though is just show you again from the start so you understand what to do. You hit add new. By the way, left hand side into bricks, you'll see the word templates where you can add new or see the ones you've created. What you want to do is go and give this a title, and then in the top right you want to select header. If you go and select footer, it will be a footer, okay? You're not going to see any WooCommerce templates here until you install WooCommerce, which we are not doing at the moment. So we're going to pick header, you hit publish, takes a second, and then you hit edit with bricks and it will take you over to the interface. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, it does look squashed and cramped up. It's because we're only viewing 79% of the actual screen in terms of scaling. I am using a MacBook Air. On a bigger monitor, you could have had it bigger. You can shrink it down by hitting the chevron. That is now 100%. Or you can put your mouse over here and just shrink it down as well. And the percentage, if you look up there, it now says 90. That will grow and shrink as we drag it galore like that. So when you're looking at it, always be mindful of that, because if you start to think, oh, my font looks really small, and then you make it big, when you're actually viewing it 100%, all of a sudden it's now going to be like in your face and knock you off your chair. So we are now going to create a header, and this is where we're going to start to understand the structure and build of bricks. Basically got structure over here. Down here you got your widgets, but the first thing you want to do is kind of do your layout. Now when you hit the plus sign over here, you can now start to build a brand new single section, or you could, if you want, hit layout here and pick one of the options over here. So you can have one section which is full width, you could have two sections with two containers or columns or blocks, whatever you want to call them, okay? You can start to define what your structure is going to be like. I'm going to keep it really simple though, and I tend to just create a single section like that. Just want to very quickly show you, if I go here and I delete all of that, if I had not done the plus sign and instead I'd gone here to the layout and picked that section, I get exactly the same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, you're going to get the same thing. And what if we had instead gone for, say, this one here, where we have 3 containers? Or columns in a way. So what happens is you get a container and you get columns. So the way things are labeled might confuse you a little bit, but I would honestly say don't worry about that too much. However, because I like to have control over how things look, I tend to just go with like that. Just one section, and then I will decide if I'm going to have extra columns inside or not. Now at the moment we have a column. This is going to be a really, really simple header. All we're going to have is a logo, and it won't even be an image. I'm going to just use some headline text because I'm just going to type it out. You might add in an image. A big thing I do want to mention right now. If you are adding images, please think about WebP. There's many ways you can do this in terms of converting. If you have an image, which is a PNG, it might be 2 megabytes. A JPEG might be 1 megabyte or 500 kilobytes. Usually they're smaller. A WebP could be as small as, say, I don't know, 20 kilobytes, 30 kilobytes. A huge shrinking in size, but it's still the same quality image. The resolution's not changed. It's just the file size. Bulk resize photos.com is free. You can add in as many images as you want. Convert that into WebP. So if you are going to go for images, please do consider that. So what we're going to do at the moment is into this container, we're going to add in a logo and we're going to add in a navigation menu. Now, in the past, you might have gone, well, don't we need 2 columns? No, you don't. You can just add in as many items as you want and position them to actually sit side by side in one column. So let's go and do that. Let's go over here and we are going to scroll down until we get to heading. By the way, if you don't want to scroll down, just go over here and type what you want. And I want to show you 2 ways that you can add this. If I pick this up and I just drop it in here, it now goes into the container, right? So we've got section, container, and heading. Look at the right-hand side if you're confused. If, however, I was to delete that, make sure I've clicked on container, not the section. Make sure you're on the container. If you go back over here and hit the plus sign to see all the elements, again, we just want the heading. If I tap it, it goes in. So you can either drag or just tap. Go for whichever works with you and your fingers, okay? So we've got our heading. Now this heading, I'm going to give it a name and call it Bricks 101. I'm going to leave it as a H3. I'm not going to decide if it's a hero or a lead. There's no need for that. And here's where I can decide my style. Now in the previous video, we talked about your color palette and the primary secondary colors here. I set my primary color to be like a pinkish red. When I click that, can you see what's happened? And if I go over here and pick my secondary color, this is what I get as well. If I don't want to be restricted by the global styles here, X all of that, put it back to scratch, and we can go over to style and we can adjust it. Now, before we do that, is this actually going to be linking into anything? Now, if it's a logo, you might want to say, actually, I do want this to go to our homepage. I don't have a homepage yet. So once we've built the homepage, you might want to come back to the text over here or the image and ensure that it is now pointing to a particular homepage. Okay, I mean, right now it's going to be pointing to other stuff, which I don't really want at the moment. So let's hit X on that. So bear that in mind, okay? It's not a bad thing to have your logo go back to the homepage. Now when we go over to style, we can start to mess around with things a little bit more. We'll come back to layout. Let's go to typography. Now at the moment, we only have this pinkish red, but if I go down here, that is the default color palette. We talked about it in the previous video, but I did set up a palette called new that we have here at the moment. So I can now decide, well, what color scheme am I going to go for? You can add colors on the fly as well. So whatever we did previously, we can do even more to it now. So I am going to go with a yellow color, something like that. And I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to say that is the color of my text. Now don't worry, at the moment you're saying we can hardly see it. We are going to change the color of the section as well. I just want to do things in stage by stage for you. We can decide on the alignment. Now at the minute it is left aligned, and I am not going to do anything more here except transformation. I'm going to make this be a uppercase like that. In fact, I might give this a bit of letter spacing. Okay, so I'm going to put in a 1, and that just spaces out the letters a little bit more. You're probably going like this. I can't see this. What is going on? We're going to come back onto this, but please bear in mind, we have all of these options for the line height, if it was text that was wrapping onto another line, shadows and items like that. Now, we do have the background as well. I am not applying any background. If I was to, let me just show you what would happen with a red. It only applies it to the text. We're not doing that, okay? So I'm just going to clear that away, okay? But if you do background, it's not to the section or the container, it's just to the text, okay? You can do shadows, gradients, you can transform it if you want to. If I just click this over here, or you're going to rotate it, you know, in terms of the Y, Z axes and stuff like that. We're not going to do anything there. And again, you can add in some custom CSS. So if you've got something that you've written yourself or you got from somewhere else, you can add it in over here. Let's just close that down. Now that text is fine, but we can hardly see it. I'm now going to go, well, sorry, let me just go back. There was one area I missed off over here. We also have the layout. I'm not going to touch the layout of the heading because I'm going to do my layout within the container. In fact, I'll probably do it within the section, not the container. But what we do need to do is assign some color because I can't see the yellow. Let's click on the section now. And if we go to content, these settings here are very important, okay? But I'm going to come back to these when we've actually got further content because it will make more sense. If I do it now, you're not going to fully understand it, but we will come back to that. Let's go to this section. Let's go to the style. We will come back to the layout for the margin and padding after we've got some further content. But what we will do is, if we minimize that, is we will go down to background. Are we going to add in a image? No. What we're going to, or a video, in fact, as well. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to put in a color scheme. Let's go over here. Let's pick from the new color scheme that we had. And I'm going to go for, we could go with black, but I'm actually going to go for this slightly off black color. 2222222. Sounds like R2D2 on, you know. we're going to go for that there, okay? 222, so it's kind of black, but it's not completely black. Now we have the wording over there. Right, we can definitely see this needs padding, but let's not jump into that just yet. Let's add in something else into the container. Let's click container. Let's hit the plus sign. And now we're going to go for navigation menu. Now, when I add in the navigation menu like that, again, I just clicked it because what I had done is already clicked on container. So when I click it, automatically goes in. Now that nav menu, if I just click on it at the moment, if we go to content, there is no nav menu in here. We do have a main menu that I created. If I click it, that is now added. However, you still can't see it, but that's because the style's not been set. Let me go to style. Let me go to color. And again, I'm going to pick from my palette. And I could now pick any one of these colors. I'm just going to go with something light. In fact, we'll go with this lighter one over here. So we've got home, about, and content. The style is completely wrong at the moment, okay? Before we sort out the alignment, because I want these all to sit on one line, I want to now touch on the typography sizings. If I go to the heading first, the font size, we don't have any value in. There is a word of warning I want to give you here. If I type in 100, that is 100 pixels, which if you're fine with using pixels, you'll be okay with that. I prefer to use REM. So if I type in 1 REM, I want it to be 1. But the problem is that 1 is actually 1 pixel, right? You can't see it. You can't even read it, right? But how do I get REM? There is no unit selection. And this is part of a recent Bricks update. And I'm hoping they put the units back in. Here's what you need to do, though. I'm going to type in 1 and then I'm going to type in REM like that and hit return. That is actually equal to 10 pixels. And if you don't believe me, if I get rid of that and put in a 10, that is the same size. I'm really sorry, it's really small. If you're watching this on a mobile phone, you're going to get eye ache, but stay with me on this. Let's just change this to be 1. In fact, we're going to make this be 2 REM like that. You could do it in capitals or just smaller case like that. Let's hit return. Bear in mind though, we are viewing this at 83% scale. If we were to now the 100% scale, you can now see it's looking bigger. So please do bear in mind that. So I'm going to make this be a 3 for now. We'll just make it a bit bigger. Let's go to the nav menu. We now determined that you've got to add in your size. I'm going to go with 2 REM like that and hit return. Okay, that's okay. But we still have the problem over things not sitting side by side. If I now go to container, this is where I can decide on how do things sit within the container. Now, if I had more than one container, so we had 2, I would be doing what I'm about to do next in the section. Because the containers are like, you know, the blocks, the rooms, not blocks, sorry, they're the rooms inside. And now I'm going to decide that I don't want you to sit one underneath another. I want you to sit side by side. But instead, we're going to go to the container because my items are inside the container. I hope that makes sense. Now, at the moment, we have this alignment over here. Sorry, the direction. We have vertical, which is what it's doing. The column approach. Or we have the row. I click it. You can instantly see what's happened there. It's not perfect. You can see here that the navigation menu is slightly elevated. So if I go over here to align cross axes, you have one called centered. Let me just show you what happens if I hit end. It goes to the bottom, start to the top. Center, it's now nicely aligned. This is why I don't like to do my margins and paddings straight away, because if you start to do it on one, you then got to account for in the other one. I like to just get things in place and then I mess around with the margins and paddings of the section or the containers because it's easy to see things all in one go. Now, the other thing we also want to bear in mind though is that this at the moment is cramped up next door to one another. If we go to the align main axes, I could do this and hit center. I could put them at the end, or I could do what I'm really want to do is just go like that, space between. You can basically see now they are spaced out. Now we are still going to work on the margin and padding. There's not enough space above and below. And can you see over here, we've got a bit of a gap here and we've got a gap here as well. So let's get rid of that. Well, it's really easy. We're now going to stretch. Now when you hit stretch, that will now go all the way across. Let me show you. Look, it's now gone all the way across. So we have, in a slow way and systematically, so you understood what each component was doing, worked through the direction, stretched it across, made sure we got space in between, and we have kind of centralized them in the axes, so you didn't have one at the top or the bottom, depending on the size of them. Well, that's all good and well, but now let's add in a bit more to it. I'm going to go over to the section, and I could do this on the container, by the way, but I'm just going to go over to the section, and I'm going to go, in fact, no, we'll do it on the container. We'll do it on the container, okay? I'm going to go to Style, I'm going to go to Layout, and this is where I now decide on the padding or the spacing. I'm not going to do the margin, because if I was to go here and I do this, like that, it pushes it away from the top, which I don't want, okay? So let's stop that. Instead, what I'm going to do is add some padding around all of those items. I'm going to link them, and I'm now going to go over here, and I'm just going to type in a 10. That adds in 10 pixels, top, middle, left, and right. Let's now just go and view that. It's looking okay from the top and bottom, but I think on the left and right, we need a little bit more. So I'm going to unlink it, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, give me about 20 and 20 on the right as well. I love how it gives you the CSS text. So if you're still getting used to CSS and learning it, this is a great little guide for you. We have our header. I mean, this is a fake menu item, by the way. I haven't even really styled it. If I was to go into the Nav menu right now, if I go over to the content, when we go to the top level menu, you'll notice here there's already a 30 because it's actually adding in a 30 space. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I do 100, that's the spacing in between all of them. If I get rid of that and put in a 0, they're now cramped up. So you might decide you're going to go with a 20 or a 30 or a 40 even, like that. That's 400. Why did I do that for? Let me get rid of those numbers. 40. There we go. So you can start determining the spacing that you have there. And that's why there was always this little bit of a gap there. You might have spotted it earlier. That's why we have that there. You can adjust this accordingly, okay? And again, you have padding as well. Let's just close that down. We have the submenu. There are no submenu items here. But maybe underneath the about, there was like a chevron or something. You click here and it has like a drop-down menu. You might have a different background color. And again, you might want to adjust the size or the padding of that as well. I missed this bit out before I jumped onto submenu, and it's good if I show you it. So we have a background color we're going to leave as transparent. You can add a border as well. Of course, you can change your typography, which, because we've already done it in the style, if you want to have a completely different typography for your submenu, I'm not sure why you would want to do that. In terms of consistency, I wouldn't do that, but you can if you want. And you can also decide on, are you going to have a different color, for instance, sorry, a different background color for when you are on an active page. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is go over to active typography. I am going to say that the color for this will be yellow. So when you are on an active page, you're not going to see it here because this is all a fake menu anyway. But when you are on an active page, the color of it will be yellow. The default color for everything else, let me just close that down, will be the standard grayish color we've got there. And you can also use the icon facility over here if you are going to pick an icon to demonstrate as a drop down. If I go to Ion Icons and type arrow, you might want to use that to be for your drop down, for instance, okay? And you can decide on your color scheme and all of that. I'm not going to mess around with that. Key one is going to be your mobile menu. Now, your mobile menu actually looks like that. It slides in. You can, if you want, create your own off-canvas menu, and we'll be doing that in a later video, okay? But for now, you can decide on, is it going to come in from the right? Is it going to come in from the left, for instance? We'll go in with the left over here. Is it going to fade in? What's the position of the menu? So look, I can rearrange items, decide on your background colors. So we could go over here and we'll go again and pick from our palette. You could change your typography again. You can do your styling in terms of layout. Maybe I might say, okay, from the top, I want it to be like a 50 spacing between each of them. I'm going to get rid of that. And also you can have a think about your toggle icon. How is that going to look? I'm going to say over here, the toggle icon makes sense to be the yellow color as well. Are you going to hide the close button? I would say leave that in. And you can also start to arrange where does that close button sit. By the way, though, okay, you definitely want to be using the responsive modes at the top to just check how do things look. So look, this is the tablet, this is the mobile landscape, this is the mobile portrait. Please go and adjust. Don't just do one section and walk on by and go, yay, I'm really happy. The mistake you could make is hit save and leave it and come back and then you start working on your pages. What you haven't done is set a display condition, and that is really important. Over here where we have settings, we didn't go to template settings, or we haven't gone to that yet. What you want to do is go here and now decide, well, how is this going to be displayed? I'm going to say that we are going to make this be it's going to be displayed at the top. That's quite standard. Or maybe you want to have it displayed on the right. Maybe you're going to have like a sidebar structure. So you'll have your logo, you'll have your navigation menu, you won't have the drop down enabled, and you'll have your social sharing icons. In fact, what if you were going to do that? Let's just put it over into desktop mode, okay? This now does not look right, number one, if you were going to do it like this, okay? In fact, we'll put it over on the left so it's easier to see. What you want to do is go to your container and you would want to make it be a column approach like that. Then you want to go to your nav menu and you want to make the alignment be like that. And then you will adjust it accordingly. I'm just going to undo all of that and get it back to how it was. I'm going to go back to my header and just make this be a top. Well, when you hit the cross, it defaults back to top. Is this going to be a sticky header? So no matter how much you scroll up and down the page, it is always going to be there at the top. It's entirely up to you if you want to go for that look or not. I quite like it. The key one is conditions. Is this going to be visible across the entire website or just on the front page or wherever it says here? This is really important. We're going to go for entire website and we are going to save that. So from a simplistic point of view, that is our header done. We've set the display condition. It will now be visible on the home page if we had one or anything like that, the entire website. We have a logo. We've got some padding in around it and we have our items over here. Now there was quite a bit covered off in there and we will revisit some of the stages as we go along when you start to realize actually that setting I did before needs to be adjusted. But hopefully this is going to help you to get a bit more understanding of how to use Bricks Builder to build your header template. I'm Imran, Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share and follow. I'll see you.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, bitch, hand me the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag.